Hey guys, Sarah Gaston here. Welcome to another Facebook Live with yours truly, Sarah Gaston. I already said that. I said my name. There, I said it again. Anyway, a couple of announcements while I wait for people to hop on and I adjust my phone a little bit. So Facebook Live, sadly, is coming to an end. Not sadly, it's just time to move on. I started Facebook Live during the pandemic, during lockdown, because I wanted people to feel connected and to feel supported and just have a place to talk and stay vital and talk about the business, etc. And it served that purpose, and it's been fantastic. And it went on a lot longer than I thought it would. I mean, I kind of started it on a whim, so I didn't know how long it was going to last. But anyway, people are getting back to their lives, and that's fantastic. And so I just decided, that I'm going to end it. So in 2 weeks, we'll have our last Facebook Live. So I encourage people, if they still want to hear from me weekly, to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I do send out a video typically once a week on YouTube, and it's similar content. There just won't be the interactive quality. And you can always send me your questions, and chances are it will make it into the next video if I don't answer you personally. So anyway, I'm still going to be around. A couple of announcements again while we're waiting. I'm going to be doing a free acting challenge at the beginning of August, so stay tuned for details on that. I'll announce something on Facebook, and I'll send it out in my email blast. So if you want to keep up with everything, signing up for my email list on my website is the way to go. But anyway, it's just going to be a free 5-day acting challenge just to get people sort of motivated and energized. Summer is just kind of a sluggish time, and we tend to kind of just, if it's hot where you are, or rainy like it is here in Houston, people just get kind of off track a little bit. So sometimes it just helps to have something motivational like a challenge. So that's what we're going to be doing in August. Anyway, today I want to talk a little bit about monologues and monologue auditioning, because that has been really hot lately. I'm working with a lot of different people on this. And you may think, well, I don't ever do monologues, I'm a film actor or whatever, but you'd be surprised at when monologue auditions will come up, or the opportunity to do them will come up. A lot of casting directors were asking for monologues at the beginning of lockdown, and a lot of actors didn't have them or didn't have them prepared. And there's still a casting director that has something called Monologue Mondays, where she encourages actors to post a new monologue every Monday on Instagram and tag her. So it's a great opportunity on your own to do something and to sort of explore a character that maybe you aren't getting called in for, and to just show the world what you got. Joe Grassafi says monologues do come up occasionally during auditions. Absolutely. So I come from a theater background, and in that situation, you always have at least 2 monologues ready to go, a comedic and a dramatic, and occasionally a classic. Okay, we're not gonna worry about that today. I ain't gonna make you do Shakespeare. I understand some of you people don't like the Bard, and that's okay. It's not really okay. I judge you, but I won't say that on Facebook Live. Whoops, I just did. Anyway, so couple of things around monologues: how to stop hating them, how to choose the right one, and how to feel about doing it in the room. And I'm going to make this brief because I have videos that talk about this more in length. But one thing is, you want to pick a monologue for a character that you could reasonably play on film. Okay, if you're looking at something that you're going to be showing to a casting director, a filmmaker, etc. In other words, if you did high school theater or college theater, and maybe you were 16 and you were playing a 60-year-old, and you put on your age makeup and you put some of that silver spray in your hair, and you were, all of a sudden, you're a grandma, right? That doesn't work that way with film monologue, right? So you want to play the age and type that you would normally play. That being said, you don't want to play anything that is way outside your life experience, right? So if you've never had any sort of loss and you're playing a character who's had a devastating loss, that's going to be really difficult for you. Um, you know, if you're scrawny, don't play, somebody who's like hyper athletic. You know what I mean? Like, be reasonable in what you could play. The other thing is you want to stay away from anything that is, it's just too well known. No man ever should do the Fight Club monologue. Okay, just don't do it. If you just saw, a promising young woman and you thought Carey Mulligan was amazing and she had this fantastic monologue and you want to go out and do it, don't do it, because it's fresh in everybody's minds, right? So stay away from stuff that's really, really well known. You can get great material from television shows because they don't tend to be like something that everybody's watched several times. You can get great material from contemporary plays. And just to clarify, dramatic doesn't mean you have to cry or that anyone dies or anything like that. It just means it's more serious in tone. And same thing with comic. I mean, it doesn't have to be a ha ha ha. It doesn't have to be a knock knock joke. It's just that the character's point of view is funny to the audience for some reason. Typically, because there's something about that person that we recognize, either in ourselves or in other people. That's what makes something funny, not like telling jokes, okay? And I think a lot of people get confused. I'll work with students and I'll give them a monologue that I think is hilarious, and they're like, well, it's not funny. It's like, no, it may not read ha-ha funny on the page, but I can envision the type of person who would say these things and it's very funny, right? So that's just something to keep in mind when we're talking about comedic monologues. The other thing is, if you've got a time limit, you don't get more points for saying more words. Particularly in film, they're so much more interested in seeing you think and seeing how you process what you're experiencing. So there was a monologue that I did for one of those casting directors at the beginning of lockdown. And as a theatrical monologue, it's about a minute long. I probably cut it in half when I did it as a film monologue because I filled it with more inner life, because I knew that was what the camera is looking for versus an audience. An audience wants to hear the words, in a theatrical situation, because you're telling the story, you're talking about what's happening, versus, the camera sees you experiencing what's happening, okay? And then the last thing, again, this is just a general sweep, is, if you're performing a monologue live, okay, it's not my last thing, it's my second to last thing. They're there to evaluate you, they're not there to be entertained. So a lot of times, especially if you're used to live performance, if you go in to do a monologue live, you want them to be engaged as if they're an audience, and they're not going to be. They're looking at you thinking, what do they look like? What do they sound like? Can I use them in something? Are they nervous? Are they client ready? Should they be in front of a casting director? Should they be on set? They're looking at things like that. So you may not get that warm fuzzy feeling if you're used to performing live, but that's okay, because that's not what they're there for, right? They're there to evaluate you as a prospect that they can potentially collaborate with, versus oh, I'm just sitting back and just watching a story, right? The last thing that I'm going to say about this is a monologue is not a speech. It's a conversation, but it's a one-sided conversation, just like I'm doing right now. I'm actually monologuing right now. Doesn't mean I don't have an intention, doesn't mean I'm not trying to communicate with you, okay? What happens a lot of times with monologue auditions is we think it's like a speech. I call it speechifying. And so we get up there and then we give a speech, right? Now, if you're doing a monologue that is a speech, which I don't recommend, that's one thing. But it is part of a conversation. So it has to have the intensity and the connection and the drive and the desire to be heard and understood, just like dialogue does. If you're not doing this in your dialogue work, then we have a different problem. But it's not meant to be a speech. So just know that it's always a conversation with someone. Sounds simple, hard to execute. So you always, always, always have to have your imaginary person there that you're trying desperately to get something from. Okay, right now, even though I'm looking into like this little dot on my phone, I'm trying desperately to convince you guys, I guess, that this is the truth, right? Because I've coached so many actors over the years who struggle with monologues, and this is what I see more than anything. They stand up there and they give a speech, and they're not thinking about what they're saying, and they're not trying to make sure that it lands on the other side. Anyway, are there any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. It must be because you're just so wrapped by what I'm saying. I'm kidding. Hello, Joseph Jones. Anyway, if there are no questions, I'll wrap up. But of course, if you have questions, drop them in the comment section. Let's see. Like I said, Facebook Live. We've only got 2 more episodes after this, and then I'm pulling the plug. I explained this at the beginning of this video if you want to circle back. Anyway, I appreciate everybody who's watched over the past year and a half. If you still want to catch me every week, I drop a video every week and send it out on YouTube. So if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you're still going to hear from me every week. And if you subscribe to my email list, actually I send some things out on email that I don't share anywhere else. As always, if you want to work with me, reach out to me. All my contact information is on my website. And thank you guys so much for tuning in the past 15 months. And I'll see you next week for my second to the last Facebook Live. Break a leg out there, my friends.